of potency.
This one is about Amazon warehouses, and it's by a guy named Kevin Mims. And apparently,
this is why I'm hot.
Apparently, they sourced this article to a guy who actually does work at an Amazon fulfillment gulag, and the whole point of the article is like, actually, it's great. So this is called Tourist Journalism versus the Working Class. A few days before the 4th of July, British comic John Oliver used the pulpit of his U.S. infotainment show to deliver a lengthy monologue about the depredations of Amazon.com. His specific complaint was that Amazon doesn't treat its employees very well. According to Oliver, among the indignities that the company has heaped upon its workforce are two separate instances in which a canister of bear repellent leaked in an Amazon warehouse. Oliver and his journalistic team also found former Amazon employees willing to complain on camera about working conditions in the company's warehouses and fulfillment centers. They can get very hot in the summer and very cold in the winter. Getting to the bathroom sometimes requires a long walk. Pregnant women get no special bathroom accommodations. Oliver's researchers even uncovered an incident in which a worker had died on the job, and her coworkers were told to carry on working in the presence of her corpse. I know this sounds bad, but so Amazon disputes much of this, but I have no difficulty believing that incidents like this do occasionally occur. Amazon employs roughly 650,000 people worldwide. That number is higher than the population of 50 of the world's 233 countries. It's entirely possible that at some point a citizen of Luxembourg, population 600,000, has been sprayed by bear repellent, or that workers somewhere in Iceland, 360,000, have been required to work around a fallen coworker. But by the way, if that were the case, you think you could like maybe find an example of that happening in Iceland or Luxembourg. But by the way, like, you know, people are complaining like, yes, a canister of bear repellent exploded and everyone's like eyes were bleeding. Were there any bears though?
Yeah.
Were there any bear attacks?
There might very well have been a rampaging herd of grizzlies they diverted away from the factory.
So I'm already loving this guy's argument.
Yeah,
which is
it's so good.
You know, people in history have died.
No, regular listeners to the show will be able to correctly identify this, argumentative stratagem, which I call the McCardle.
Yes.
This is the McCardle. This is the full McCardle, where what she goes is to be like, she'll list a litany of jaw-dropping cruelty and immiseration that is going on, being caused very specifically by certain individuals in like a capitalist economy. And she'll go, I know that sounds bad when you write it down or say it out loud, but what if I told you people die all the time, everywhere? Do you know how many people die every day on the planet?
People die
literally
every day,
dozens.
yeah. People are out here dying every day. I'm going to eat regardless. That's this article. So
there he
good.
goes. But neither of these things, if they happened in Iceland or Luxembourg, I guess, would be proof that working conditions in Luxembourg or Iceland are appalling. As it happens, I work in an Amazon warehouse in West Sacramento, California. When I showed up at a friend's annual 4th of July barbecue, I found myself besieged by well-meaning, right-thinking, Trump-hating friends, all of whom were eager to tell me just what a monstrous company I work for. This was weird because most of them know that Amazon has been a lifesaver for me financially, and they have heard me say how much I enjoy the work and appreciate the money. But they are now convinced that I work in something like a sweatshop. Bemused by this outburst of hostility towards my employer, I was led inside by our host, who sat me down in front of his family's 60-inch plasma TV to watch Oliver's tirade, which he had courteously DVR'd for my benefit. Okay, so two notes here. These don't sound like his friends, but they are actually monsters for breaking up a barbecue to make him watch a clip from John Oliver's
Yeah, that's
show.
awful.
That is awful.
Cut those people out of your life.
I already you cannot send me like a link to a YouTube unless you're like one of my absolute closest friends or like one of my top 3 family members. Like, if you come to my fucking place and you like put on a YouTube clip for me, fuck you.
Yeah.
That's awful.
That is
dude.
terrible.
I mean, unless it's just like a compilation of like
Russian dash cam.
Yeah, Russian dash cam or like greatest parliamentary fights
Yeah,
in Ukraine or Korea or something.
If you're at Mike Racine's Christmas party and everyone likes it, no one's mad at you.
He goes, I have to say, I found Oliver's takedown unpersuasive. It is possible that Oliver was aware his material was a little thin, which is why he padded the segment with scattershot complaints about Walmart and Verizon. The enemy did not seem to be Amazon in particular, but large corporations in general. Warehouse work, Oliver solemnly informed his audience, is strenuous, difficult, and doesn't pay very well. To most Americans, and people in general for that matter, this will not have been news. Warehouses serve as temporary holding centers for consumer goods. These goods, ware meaning a place, house meaning a house. These goods have to be offloaded from vast, blah, 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 blah. He's explaining what a warehouse is.
Thanks.
Okay, yeah.
I was confused.
The people who do this loading and unloading spent their days lifting toasters, boxes of kitty litter, mini fridges, and thousands of other items. Oh, God, he's going on and on. He's like, Oliver treated
That's
this like
the
a
Quillette House style.
Yeah. No,
yeah.
talk about padding out the fucking word count.
It's like watching like a point fighter in boxing. It's just like, oh, this is going all 12 rounds, isn't it?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
So he goes here, just about every job in my sortation center could probably be done by a robot. In fact, it amazes me that Amazon hasn't simply automated the entire facility. After all, robots don't call in sick, don't steal from their employers, don't sue for workman's compensation, and they never complain about long hours or the heat or the cold. But nor do robots buy consumer goods. If I had to guess, I'd say that Amazon continues to employ lots of human beings because by putting money into the pockets of working class people, the company creates more customers. Robots may not buy basketball shoes or hibachi grills, but people sure do. I love that this guy's like, he is a peasant for the robots, not even his employers. He's like, robots are superior to us, and I'm surprised, frankly, that they haven't harvested my organs. I'm surprised they haven't turned me into slurry to grease the wheels of their fucking grasping claws.
This article is by Cypher from The Matrix.
I love that he's like, Amazon's doing me a favor by not replacing me with a robot. And it's like, I mean, talk about unpersuasive, like, buddy, you think Amazon won't do that if someone shows them a chart that shows that they can save like a cent on every package shipped?
Yeah. Well, that's the insane. You hear that a lot too with people talking about $15 an hour minimum wage for fast food workers. They say, "Oh, you see those automated ordering things? That's what you get. You fucking idiot! Way to ask for a living wage." And they're saying that you have two choices. You can be hyper exploited and barely get by on a shitty, strenuous job, or you can be unemployed and a robot does it. Those are your two options. And it's like, well, where the fuck do we get a say in this shit? You know, like the idea that this is just some sort of law of nature, like I was talking about earlier, like these are non-political choices. Like, yeah, well, that's it. Bad job or unemployment by robot. How about we use the goddamn robots so people don't have to do shitty work, and then we socialize the fucking product of that, so that people can like live, and you sever the connection between livelihood and your job, so that you're not over the barrel, and so that you're not always having terms of your life dictated by the fucking capitalist.
Also, I like the implication that you hear this so often about like employers or giant corporations or even small business owners and shit. The idea that like they're doing a favor to their employees by employing them, and not like, oh, we actually like need a large number of people to like deliver the goods and services that we profit off of.
I still to this day, one of the greatest Trump lines ever was during the election before he won, when he was being attacked by the Khan family, you know. And, And somebody asked him and said, "Oh, the Khans, they've sacrificed a family member for America. Have you ever sacrificed?" And he goes, I sacrifice all the time. I employ many, many people, and they have food, and they have houses now because if I paid them. So I've sacrificed." He literally defined sacrifice as extracting surplus value from people that he then uses to build buy solid gold toilets.
Sacrifice for like Bezos or like the capitalist ruling class is just anything short of of slavery.
Yeah, it's like the fact that I give you money and I don't just have a fucking
robot
with a phaser at the back of your head, or like some sort of subdural chip that like
a tiny explosive in your jugular vein.
Yeah, and it compels you to labor for just the minimum amount of soylent required to keep you fucking vertical.
I love how cucked this guy is to the robots, though. Yeah. It's really funny. So, this is where it gets really good. He goes, apart from employing a lot of staff, Amazon does a number of things progressives ought to like. For instance, it employs a very diverse group of people. On my shift, I work with African Americans, Asian Americans, Hispanic Americans, white people, gay people, deaf people, ex-convicts, and people whose ethnicities and even genders are a mystery to me.
A wide diversity of mysterious.
And I love it.
I'm excited to ask all of them. Oh my god.
I was hired the same day as a young Vietnamese American named Lenny and a young African American named Carl. No, just kidding. And a young Mexican American named Ramon.
We also got a rabbit. I'm excited to show Lenny the rabbit.
He goes, I was hired the same day as Lenny and Ramon. They are both in their 20s. I am in my 60s. Dude, think about how fucking depressing that is, that this guy has written an article about how grateful he is to Amazon to employ him doing backbreaking work for like almost minimum wage in one of their fulfillment centers, and how grateful he is to be doing that job in his fucking 60s.
It's grim. It's very grim.
Man, this sucks.
Very dark.
We've talked about this.
Very dark.
About how
Sucks,
the boomer
man.
deal of you're where you are and it sucks, but you're going to die soon and you can't accept that your life didn't work out. And so actually, no, this is all great. This is good. This is all, there's nothing. Why should we change anything?
He goes, yeah, I'm in my 60s. But because we started on the same day and went through training together, we bonded and became work friends.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Although-
I'm sure that all the mysterious gender potpourri people who you ogle at, like, wow, I'm sure they think you're a real buddy. They don't just like tolerate your conversation before they can get away from
No,
it.
no, this is where it gets really good. He goes, although Ramon is an American citizen, his wife Angela is not. I like he and then like he goes on to include their street address in the article. No, just kidding. He goes, despite the fact that she has lived in America since she was 3 months old. He's angry that President Trump has backed off from the DACA program President Obama put in place to help people like Angela find a path to citizenship. Listening to Ramon discuss his firsthand dealings with immigration authorities has brought the issue alive for me in ways that reading news reports cannot. He's like,
Wow.
yeah, no, when I just read news accounts of, people being put in concentration camps on the border, it doesn't really hit home for me in the same way that being friends with my Latino friend,
See,
Ramon.
what's so funny about this is that what he's describing, the process of coming together with these diverse people in a single workplace and having a shared experience of exploitation and labor, that's literally what creates class consciousness. That's the foundry of class awareness. And he is using that to be like, yeah, this company's great. We all get to work together. Instead of being, hey, these people are fucking us over. We all have more in common than we don't. And we can organize together to get a better fucking deal from these vampires.
Well, like the saddest thing to me of what I read so far is like where he's just like, robots don't complain about the hot or cold or steal from their employers or call in sick. And it's like, he's just saying like, yes, like meat and the flesh is weak. And like that if you complain to your employer, you're being ungrateful.
And he's
like you're being like
even though this is
a
what's
spoiled child
this is the
or
most
something.
cucked mindset of all. It's very common to see in the media when people talk about labor relations, the instinctive mindset you put yourself in as the commentator is as the boss. You imagine yourself the boss. And most Americans do imagine themselves the boss when they're thinking about sports, for example. They're not the
Like
players.
if I had,
they're the boss. Whenever they think about a strike or anything, they always put themselves in the mindset of the boss. It's the same reason that's very hard to convict cops for murder, because especially if it's racial, it's a white cop and a minority suspect, and you're a white juror, you put yourself instinctively in the mind of the cop and not in the victim. And that makes sense when you're talking about people in the media specifically, and the public at large, and the small business tyrants and the middle managers of America. But this guy puts himself in the mindset of the boss when he is the employee. He is the one, and he's like, oh, these lazy human workers like me. Like, that is the most astounding just ideology levels beyond any I could imagine, where you're taking the boss's side against yourself. Amazing.
So this is really good. He goes, Ramon's mother, Rita, a woman in her 40s who speaks little English, also works with us at the warehouse. I speak no Spanish, but Rita and I are friends. We often work side by side. Hey, guys, you know that thing where you become friends with someone despite not being able to speak each other's language?
It's the plot to, I think, half the movies that played at Sundance in the 90s. People making sweet intergenerational cross-language friendships.
Fuck, it just goes on and on now. It goes, every morning before our shift begins, my fellow Amazonians and I gather at the front of the warehouse where all of our photos and names have been printed onto rectangles that resemble refrigerator magnets.
Jesus Christ.
These magnetic photos are stuck to a large white board with a diagram that represents every station in the warehouse. One by one, each person's magnet is assigned a place on the map. Every day brings a new arrangement. One day I may be pulling packages off the conveyor belt between a young Hispanic woman and an older black male. The next day, I may be helping to stow packages in an aisle alongside 2 Vietnamese women. This is a good thing. Working and cooperating every day as part of a diverse workforce can help clear up misperceptions. On my second or third day on the job, I was paired with a young African-American woman who had been with Amazon a few weeks longer than I had. While talking to Celine, I learned that she Ubered to and from work every day because she didn't own a car. The cost of the short ride was about $7.50 each way. In other words, she lost an hour's pay every day just covering her commuting costs. When I discovered that she lived in a low-income housing projects less than a mile from my house, I offered to drive her to and from work every day. She accepted. So yeah, like we're across all races and classes, we can bond by our shared experience of hyper-exploitation and just white-knuckling it paycheck to paycheck.
And we love it, folks. We love it. We could never change it. Why would we want to? It's not like we would be even closer if we democratically controlled the workplace together instead of taking orders from some fucking algorithm.
He goes
We
on.
love it.
He goes on and on. He goes on for another 10,000 words about how like the conditions aren't really bad and the
course.
journalistic accounts are like misplaced or whatever. He goes, Amazon is not a perfect employer. I have a litany of gripes I'd be happy to share with you sometime. Well, why did obviously they let you wrote this
50,000
much.
words. He didn't have any room for that shit. He clearly didn't have an editor.
He goes, I don't know of anyone who doesn't have complaints about their employer. Progressives tend to clamor about exposés that portrays large multinational corporations like Walmart, Amazon, and McDonald's as nothing more than cold-hearted exploiters of the working class. This type of thing does no one any good. If Amazon is going to be castigated publicly every time one of its 650,000 employees had a bad day or just die on the job, it may well decide to automate as many positions as possible to do away with most of its human workforce. Again, he's back to like, he's threatening himself.
Yeah.
He's like, if you keep complaining or doing exposés about these horrible working conditions, guess what? You'll be out of a job.
Yeah. It's like he's holding a gun to his own head, being like, I'll fucking blow my own fucking brains out if you don't stop complaining about the conditions that I work under.
He's like Leo in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Where he's like, if you don't get those fucking lines right, I'll blow your fucking brains out. Your brains will be all over your fucking pool tonight. Get it together.
Yep.
So he goes, the problem with exposés like those mentioned here is that they don't tell us how Amazon warehouses stack up against, say, warehouses operated by Home Depot, Starbucks, the New York Times, the Ford Motor Company, Microsoft, Barnes & Noble, or even Warner Media, the parent company of John Oliver's television home, HBO. Okay, it goes on for another 10,000 words. Last paragraph. I am writing this on July 15th, Amazon Prime Day, one of the busiest days of the year on the Amazon calendar. I put in a 6-hour shift this morning at the West Sacramento warehouse. The workday wasn't brutal. The company treated us all to a pancake breakfast in the break room during our 10-minute break.
Jesus Christ! Just
shovel those pancakes in. You got 20 seconds.
Oh, the Lord has smiled upon us by gifting us with these buckwheat flapjacks. Perhaps the nutrition will prevent my scrofula from acting up again.
That is like a punishment. Like,
No,
you have
worry.
10 minutes to
10
eat
minutes to
as
eat
many
these fucking
pancakes as you
pancakes.
can. We're going to be watching you. Then get back to just grueling labor after eating all these pancakes. No time to digest it. Famously easy to digest, especially at like 60. Just like a shitload of starch and syrup. Fucking awesome.
So he goes,
That guy, oh my God. They just like, is there like a new Amazon thing that like scans people's shit? They're just trying to analyze worker diarrhea.
the smart pipe.
Yeah.
I cannot wait
yeah.
till Jeff Bezos, a few more years of just collapsing institutions, and he just goes full Diocletian, and he only addresses people from behind a fucking saffron robe or a saffron curtain, and you can't look at him directly. He like put his bejeweled hand out, and you can kiss it, and that's the only contact he can have with a regular person. And we're all like, ooh, we're gonna get an audience with Bezos. He might deign to allow one of my children to live with me and not be sold to the Amazon child processing facility.
You know what?
One day, when my magnet was placed in the punishment zone, I found the Amazon AI was actually quite merciful in its doses of electric shock to my collar.
The thing I do respect about Bezos is that he's just fully like, yeah, let's do this evil. I'm just gonna be evil. Like he eats iguana.
Yeah.
He's like looks like Lex Luthor. He's doing HGH.
Fantasizes about living on Mars
Yeah.
while the rest of us burn to death.
And it's like that's actually a lot better than like Warren Buffett, who's just as rapacious of a person, but is like, I like to drink a nice Coke and have a cheap steak. And it's like, fuck you, you're not even doing anything with this. You suck, man. Or like Richard Branson, who's like making live, laugh, love posts. Like, that shit sucks, man.
Bezos eats iguana, and Branson, Richard Branson looks like a fucking iguana.
Yeah. Like, it's at least like he's not. I know like everyone has PR teams and like armies of publicists, but I can't imagine they're like, yeah, you should just look and behave exactly like Lex Luthor.
Oh, wait, there's an addendum to the pancake breakfast thing. So he says, the company treated us all to a pancake breakfast in the break room during our 10-minute break.
That's so
Of course, you can't eat a pancake breakfast healthily in 10 minutes, but no one in charge complained about the fact that most of us spent at least 20 minutes eating. How fucking generous of them.
This guy.
They set an insane, unrealistic limit on the break, and then he praises them for ignoring their self-imposed. Wow, that's amazing.
But no, check this out. It gets even better. Yes, we were all encouraged to chant Prime Day slogans during our morning stretch. As we were all given little Amazon Prime 2019 lapel pins and other bits of flair to wear on our high visibility safety vests. Okay, the flair thing is like, famously in Office Space, like the TGI Fridays stuff, where it's like you're a server that's outwardly facing to customers.
These
are people
customers.
who are ensconced.
This is for each other.
A windowless vacuum, like an underground dungeon.
Yeah.
Who have to chant slogans and wear flair to demonstrate to each other their enthusiasm for the Amazon AI overlord.
It's
bot.
a cult. They're cult conditioning them to be grateful little worker bees.
So he goes, and other bits of flair to wear on our high visibility safety vest. So what? A bit of company spirit is downright American. I don't mind being a small cog in the machinery of American commerce. It keeps the bills paid and my stomach from growling. But if John Oliver and his ilk keep harping away at how inhumanely Amazon treats its workers, Bezos might decide to completely automate his operation, and people like me will be out of a job. And that will not only ruin my 4th of July, it will ruin every other day of the year as
Holy
well.
shit.
Dude, this is really depressing.
They need to do a remake of The Prisoner, and he goes, I am a number. Sir, Jesus Christ, that is grim. Wow. That's dark.
Great shit, man. That was dope.
I mean, the next step is like if we keep treating billionaires like Jeff Bezos inhumanely, they'll have no choice but to just move to Mars and leave us all to rot and die on this festering hellhole that they've created.
Look what we made him do.
Yes.
Unbelievable. I can't wait for this guy pitching his granddaughter into a volcano to appease Bezos. It's going to be great.
Yes. Our managers do exercise the right of prima nocta. And what's wrong with that? They work hard. They're entitled to a little relief from time to time.
My wife, we're happy to have the DNA of a superior upper manager in our family now.
You know who I think? I think this is actually a pseudonym. I think the guy who actually wrote this was the dude from that fucking Netflix documentary about like the Mormons who had their daughter kidnapped by that lunatic.
Oh, yeah.
And then he just like got that guy to just jack him off and give him head because he was like, come on, buddy.
I need relief.
Just do it. And he was like, well, I thought to myself,
he needs relief.
I guess so. That's who actually wrote this article.
Yeah. Just a total self-cuck.
Oh, brutal.
Wow.
we love to think about it.
And we love to listen to it, and we love to talk about it.
Jeff Bezos could pay out of his own checking account like a $20 an hour wage to every Amazon employee.
Yeah. Yikes. Brutal. Just brutal, man.
We shouldn't criticize Jeff Bezos. He's gone through a lot. He lost Ninja.
You're right. Yeah.
Ninja left Twitch. He went to Mixer.
I will say, this is a perfect example of the essential vapidity of the Quillette style contrarianism, where it's instinctive contrarianism, and then they pitch that as, well, that means that we're diverse and we're nimble-minded. We're not closed-minded like all of you hectoring ideologues. But what that ends up with you doing is seeing a lot of mainstream media criticism of this monstrous corporation, deciding, well, what's the monstrous corporation side of the story? That you have fucked up if this is where your heuristic for like understanding the world has led you. If you're at that point, there's no content to this. It's just total bubbleheadedness. You're a moron.
For real though, don't force the guests at your 4th of July barbecue to watch John
Yeah,
Oliver
don't do
clips.
that.
Come
though.
on.
I mean, honestly,
on.
he might have just written this to troll that person, and I kind of would not. I would kind of understand if they'd done that because that is a horrible dick move.
So anyway, enjoy your pancake breakfast, everybody. We'll talk to you again soon.
See ya.
Bye bye.
Bye.